joining us again on Who's That Leader in the Mirror. Today we go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. And sorry, not sorry, because it's kind of, we've got to tackle these hard issues and challenging folks that we come across, sadly, sometimes on a daily basis. And what do we do when that happens? And the big takeaway, well, I'm not going to let you know what the takeaway is. Come on and join us and we'll share some of our great experiences and stories. Who's that leader in the mirror today? It's your birthday.
It's been a good day. I mean, I got to do a cool thing today with a colleague who trusted me enough to come and do a challenging conversation with his congregation to talk about mental health awareness. And it was a beautiful conversation. We led a prayer service. And anyway, good way to spend my birthday.
Good way. Wow. Very, very giving of you, right? You're giving on your birthday.
Yeah.
And a tough birthday because this is your first birthday that, it's not been.
Yeah. But my congregation did a very sweet thing yesterday. So we have this fellowship time every week on Wednesdays. And everybody just shows up with snacks and beverages and we just hang out for a couple hours. And so I come from my office into the parish hall with my snack and my beverage. And they have a birthday cake and are singing happy birthday when I walk in. So it was really sweet.
That's awesome. Oh, right on. Well, that's good, right? Good to be loved. Loved is important. Yeah. And, it's funny because I don't know, I was thinking about today and we were on a bit of a roll last time and I'm very cognizant, to keep to our times. You don't want to bore people on these podcasts, but I'm sure we would never do that. But getting into difficult conversations and really wanted to surround that conversation in prayer, because when you were here in New Zealand, we started to really talk about when things go bad. And, and when you're coming from a place of love, right? When your approach is that we sometimes get lost in the gray, right? And I do. And even when you have very difficult things to deal with, which, lately I feel like I've had a few difficult things to deal with. And, perspective is everything, right? Like we will only know perspective of both sides when we're in heaven. But
right.
These days I'm feeling like the evil villain. And if somebody listened to this podcast, they'd be like, oh my gosh, she's such a fake, right? Like do you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Because you try to approach things in a way from love but they'll never know the whole story. They'll never know the protection. They'll only know what you didn't do to serve them in a way that they wanted to be served.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it is challenging from a leader's perspective, right? When we are coming from a place of love, because sometimes love means that you can't be the nice person in the room, right? If there's a situation that needs correcting, somebody in the room is going to feel like you weren't being nice, and you can't let that guide your leadership, but let true love, as Jesus shows us in flesh and blood how to love, to let that be the guide of what you do and what you say. Yeah. And not let the, they don't think I'm nice being overshadow what really needs to happen. Yeah,
exactly. And I guess you can just, you walk into a room and you can hear the silence and you can, because right. I know. I don't know if that makes sense, but and I guess that it's holding on to that hope that, that the approach that you've taken has been one from love. And even though it's not been felt, that I don't want to dwell on that, but it is when it's perspective, right? Because when you approach something and you're approaching it from a place of prayer and all of that stuff, right? And you're praying for the other person may never know that. They may never know how much you tried to protect that whole situation. And it's like, but when you're living in it, I guess it's that help, that Lord, I believe, help my unbelief, right? It's that
Belief.
I just have to keep believing that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. And to trust ourselves to know what that is, right? I keep a little checklist on my desk at my computer, and it's talking about relationship boundaries from a leader's perspective. And um, two of them that come to mind. One of them says that I am not responsible for anyone else's feelings. And then it says I cannot feel other people's feelings. Other people can't feel my feelings, right?
Right.
Aren't supposed to. And so it's that balance of, yes, our emotions and our feelings are important, and they are gifts God gave us, but we can't let the just always wanting to feel good be our guide, right? We've got to bring our reasoning and intellect into the conversation along with our emotions, right? And say, right. What is the greater good for the whole group, for the whole community, for whatever it is, whatever we're seeking to accomplish. Yeah.
And I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Because when you're given responsibility and authority, comes back to that authority to make decisions on behalf of an organization group. You have to act in the best interests of all of those people.
Yes. Yeah.
And sadly, sometimes things don't work out for everyone. And I guess that's the Pollyanna in me, because I just want everything. I want everyone to get along. I want everyone to love. Yeah. I want to have a happy playground. And it's when, right. And so, I mean, and that's why we have rules and boundaries and parameters and relationship and how we build relation in that fine line of relationship. We've been watching Ghost. It's a really cute show on Netflix.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. But there was we're only on season 2, but there's a scene in it where, what's the girl's name? Sam? Is it Sam?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
And the ghost, who is her ancestor, is like, that prudish, she's very stoic. And there's a scene where they hire this young dude. It might be Steve. I don't know. Maybe that's her husband. I'm so bad with names. Anyway, and she's like guiding him and wanting to get to know him. And the aunt or great grandmother, or whatever, is like, no, you must be mean. You must tell him what to do. And it's like such an authoritarian, right? And traditional, but it is that fine line, right? Like, because you want to build trust and relationship, but it has to be genuine. And when it's genuine and comes from a place of care, and you're from a place of, I always want to put my hands on elbows, right? From a place of gentle guiding.
Yeah.
It's such a fine line, because I've had it's like that have bit me in the butt.
Right. Yeah. I remember back in my corporate America days. So this would have been the late 1990s, probably 98, 99, around in there. And I was working for a big software corporation. And we were being threatened with a hostile takeover. This other company kept trying to buy us, and our CEO was fighting it tooth and nail. Just, he didn't want that. And one morning we all get in the office, and he calls a company-wide conference call, and he gets on with us. And we all knew him. We knew who he was, and we'd all met him. And he appeared to be a nice guy, and you could hear the emotion and the compassion in his voice. And he said, "It's going to happen. It's not what I want for any of us, but the best thing that I can do for the entire company right now is to negotiate the best package for all of you that's possible." And most of us lost our jobs, and we got laid off, but he put it in such a way that we knew we were cared for in the best way possible. It wasn't going to be easy, but yeah, he did the best we could. And I remember thinking through this conversation is, if ever I'm leading a group, I want to lead like that, right? He was so human and so vulnerable with us. And that was very rare in the 90s in corporate America, right? It was more about the hostile takeover thing.
And it comes back to that respect and dignity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he treated you with respect and dignity, and you believed him. So there was
Right.
genuine, I'm going to do the best I can. And I think that's the thing. It's like comes back to looking in the mirror, right? Is if you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, you know what, I tried my best. I fought for those people. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you know, their perception, I can't control their perception. And part of it is, you know, it's a big C, little c, right? We can't control what we can't control, but we want to control how people perceive us, or we worry too much about it.
Yeah.
And we can't. And then it's, you know, who am I leaving in my wake, right? But I guess the awareness, if you have the awareness and you're constantly checking yourself and you have the humility to be able to go back and say, look, I might not have done this the best way, but in the circumstances, in the time, in the presence, it was all I could do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Is anything ever good enough?
And I don't think so, but it's right. I think if we are doing the best we can, enabling ourselves the best we can to be the best person we can be in every moment, knowing that will be different moment to moment, right? And the people around us trust that, because it is our regular pattern of observable behavior, right? We're not just saying it, we are living it too. And that, I think that also gives those that we are leading, when we do mess up and stumble and we let either our emotion or our logic get the better of us, they know that we're human too, and maybe there's some grace there, right? But it's when we can come back and say, yeah, I could have done better.
But don't you think sometimes people just forget we're human? Like we forget to say that globally. And so, right, you forget, like, man, that person actually has blood pumping through the veins of that body. Has a heart, has a soul. I mean, honestly, sometimes we think people don't. And there is evil in the world. And I think we have both talked about this, about corporate culture, work cultures everywhere, in every type of work culture. You're right. You get things that just are nasty and who sadly behave badly. And so I guess leads to my question of what happens when trust is eroded. Like, where do you go when you don't have trust?
Yeah, that's hard, because it's, there's the harmful leadership style that says, I am the leader, you must trust me regardless. And when their regular patterns of observable behavior teach you differently, right? How do you trust? Trust can't be demanded that way. And so it becomes, if you are with a leader that is showing you by what they do, even if their words try to convince you differently, that they don't have the greater good's interest at heart. They only have their own ego's interest at heart, right? It's a tough decision. Do you stay under that leader in the hopes that things get better? Do you have an influence in that leadership's growth at all? Are they willing to grow? Or is it time to go somewhere? Right? And those are personal discernment questions that only you can answer for yourself. What's going to be the best? If the person I'm following doesn't have my best interest at heart, I've got to have my best interest at heart. And where is that going to take me? Where's that going to lead me?
And I think that was certainly, something I experienced in my 30 plus years in working in higher education, because, when they say the three things, trust, loyalty, and respect are essential. And you take away one and it erodes the rest. And I've been in situations where that trust has just been, I can't trust that person, like broken, can't trust that person. And it just impacts your relationship and your loyalty. And and you end up walking away, and then you've got guilt for walking away. And then the takeaway from that, my teachable moments are, I never want to behave that way. I never want to be that.
Exactly.
Right? But then again, it comes back to we're human and we make mistakes. But it's the acknowledgement of making those mistakes and the humility, the courage, the vulnerability to be able to go to that and say, look,
right.
stop.
Because you see that kind of behavior as a mistake. People that operate in that behavior don't necessarily see it as a mistake. They just see it as the way they lead, right? They think that's so. The difference is that we can see it from our perspective as damaging to other people. And so it is a learning moment that, yeah, we're not gonna lead that way. We learn much from what others get wrong, what we get wrong, and that's where we can grow and be, just keep striving to be the best we can be. I heard a great definition this week that self-care, right? And we often get to self-care and think, oh, that's just going to get a pedicure or a massage, which are very important parts of self-care. But the overall definition was those things that enable me to be the best person I can be, right? So that self-reflection is self-care. That watching how others lead and learning, okay, do I want to lead like that or do I want to lead like this? And from my point of view, from a priest's point of view, a Jesus follower's point of view, right? Jesus is my ultimate example of leadership. And so all that I do needs to be under the umbrella of the question, am I leading like Jesus shows me how to lead? And when I don't, I have to admit it and own up to it and seek to restore the relationships that I've damaged because I wasn't.
Yeah. And what happens when you work? I mean, all of this is so subjective, right? But I was about to say, because it's perspective. But what happens when you work with people who have no clue? And I say that, well, I'm going to say, I'm not sounding very authentic. I say that with love, but I don't say that with love.
Right. It's frustrating. Yes.
Frustrating as heck. And it's like, because there are people who the big ends, like narcissists, right? And it's like, there are narcissists in the world. And there are people who just, they want to put their time in, they want to move up the ladder and they're going to do what they're going to do. And it's, and there's nothing about achieving results and having benchmarks and goals. And because we need that in organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We need to have strategy. But at the core of it all, you can't do any of it if you don't have a relationship with your people. I believe, in my wee little mind and body and brain or whatever, is that if you don't have people who are engaged, who are empowered authentically, in a genuine capacity, can work in a genuine capacity, want to, desire to. And I mean, we need to pay the bills at the end of the day. I mean, that, right? We need to pay the bills at the end of the day. And wants to go to work and enjoy their work. But again, maybe it's my belief and my hope in people. If they can't have a bit of joy in their day, right? Yeah. Why go through that day? Like,
right.
It's gotta be. Anyway, I don't know if any of that made sense. I feel like that's my point. I don't know if any of that made sense. But I'll get to a point. What do you do when you have that person who just doesn't give a rat's ass?
Right. And that's a very realistic situation. And what do we do, right? I think the biggest thing we do, and it doesn't always feel good, is we have to maintain our own integrity. And it's hard because you're frustrated. You have experienced the dismissive nature of their behavior, their constant disrespect of anyone else. And you want to just grab them and shake them and go, don't you get it? The way you are behaving is causing me and everyone else harm. Pay attention. And they don't, right? They don't see it. They're incapable of seeing it. And so us getting mad only feeds, they just are looking for some sort of reaction. of us. They don't care if it's a positive or a negative one. They just want reactivity. They're just programmed to need that. And so to not be reactive, but to say, okay, I'm going to do my work with the best of integrity, with all of my own morals and ethics guiding me. And then decide, if you can stay or if you need to go elsewhere, if you need to walk away.
Yeah.
Because none of us are required to keep stepping into somebody's intentional abuse. And regular patterns of behavior, when you've talked to another human being and said, hey, when this happens, I feel disrespected. I would like for us to talk about that. And they regularly blow you off and tell you you're overreacting and they don't care, right? You've got to decide, I'm not required to keep stepping into that. Nothing about life, nothing about what Jesus teaches says that. Yeah. And so the most helpful thing sometimes is just to walk away. And it's hard because then you got to find a new job or you got to transfer to a different department, and you may love the rest of the people that you work with, but at the end of the day, you've got to be taking care of yourself with the same intentionality that you want to take care of the people around you with.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely guilty of being blissfully unaware, right? Thinking I was just doing the best.
Sure.
And I always say ignorance is bliss. So, right? Because it is, in the sense of not worried, not thinking, and not necessarily not caring. But if you don't know the damage you're doing, you have no clue. Right. And so it's that human factor, right? I think you have to walk away and take care of yourself. But, when you're in an organization and you're working with someone who is completely narcissistic, we've example in the world of that today.
Yes.
Without having to go into that, we talk.
I know exactly what you're saying.
A bloody heck, right? Like, what do you do? Yeah. What do you do? And, I know our prayer lives for each of us is very important, in the power of prayer. And but there are people who are just purely EVI. I don't know why I'm spelling that, but right.
Yeah, but
we encounter them everywhere.
Yeah. If we define evil as intentionally causing harm, right, which I think is a very basic definition, there are people that, their whole life is about building themselves up at everyone else's expense.
So what's your advice for someone who realizes, so what you've just said, not everyone thinks about that. So it has the courage to say, that person is causing me harm. And I'm being objective. It's not a subjective thing. I mean, everything is subjective, I guess, ourselves. But like, what's your advice? What do you do?
Well, the most respectable, dignified thing you can do is to sit down and have a conversation and say it, couch it from your own perspective, right? When this situation happens, I'm
going to interrupt you because this is tough for me, Sharon. They're not hearing you. They're not understanding, and they don't.
Okay. Yeah. So we're at the point where we know they don't care.
Yeah.
Then you've got to decide, are you going to stay or are you going to go? And then learn from it and know that for you as a leader, if you're going elsewhere or the people that you're leading maybe under you, be receptive when they come to you to say, when this situation happens, I feel disrespected. Can we talk about that? Right. And be open to those conversations. Invite those conversations from the people that you lead.
And, the other thing that I think about is for the person, like, say, if it was you or for me, I'm not going to hypothesize you, but well, I've been in that kind of a scenario before where I have
too,
right? But the hard part for me was reconciling my own sense of self. Like, who am I now? And not that I didn't know who I was, but something diminishes and deteriorates within yourself because
Mhm.
you 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 think you've done something wrong. What's wrong with me? How could I have
Yeah.
done this better? Like the blame is on you. And I think I do anyway. That's the takeaway, sadly, in the situation, that I was in. I
Mhm.
literally walked away from, a relationship that I had with a boss who I thought, we had grown to be great pals. And then
Mhm.
trust was completely eroded.
Yeah.
But to get that person gone, right?
Mhm.
My loving care for that person continue to pray for that person, but my heart was hurt and I walked away. But my sense of who I was in self for years damaged, probably still, right? Like, who am I?
Yeah.
And mind you, I probably was exhausted and, burning the candle at both ends. And so not really having the capacity to think, you know, well as well as I could have. But
Yeah.
again, leadership perspective, I wasn't being cared for. I wasn't
Right.
being.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and then in my next leadership role, I probably, I feel like I didn't take care of my people in the way that I should have because I still hadn't completely healed.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
And
it's, yeah.
it takes time to get over that. And I think one of the just a task you can do in that situation is either sit down with a trusted friend that will tell you if you were the one in the wrong, or
Oh,
in your
therapist. I needed
yeah,
therapist. I
yeah,
had a
there,
therapist. I had a
yeah,
therapist, a professional therapist take me through. Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah. No, but that's important too. And go through the like just tell the story of this situation and that situation and this situation, and take inventory of, was I the one in the wrong, or was I reacting to harmful behavior towards me,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And that's how that self inventory, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and it's different. I mean, everybody's going to heal and do it differently,
Yeah.
um, but it's the self awareness that's so important.
Yeah. And taking care, people often will say you can't take care of your family if you don't take care of yourself, right? You can't take care of your people unless you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So it really comes back to that reconciliation of who I am, who do I want to be, where can I
Right.
be the best, and what's in my toolbox to enable
Yeah.
that so that I can continue to be. And when am I, it's that back to the mirror, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
a crappy day and what went wrong, and keeping yourself on track, right? Having your person, I mean, I was dramatic, but I did actually in the moment need I saw a good therapist who got me back on track. But
Yeah.
it's a coach, a mentor, a buddy, a best
Mm-hmm.
friend who you can trust, right? And who can take you through that. And, when we talk about Jesus led leadership, it's all about coming back to I'm imperfect, and,
Right.
and the power of prayer and giving and saying, giving, enabling yourself through prayer and discernment to be able to say, I was wrong and I'm sorry. Please forgive
Totally.
me.
Yeah. Right. And that's part of being in trusting relationships, is being able to hear when you've caused the harm, when you are the one that's in the wrong, and
Okay.
to do what's necessary to restore that relationship. And yeah. And so prayer and discernment and grace for ourselves and asking forgiveness from others, right? All of those are things that Jesus shows us are critical to being um, good leaders.
And love, it comes back to the choosing. I
Yeah.
choose not to behave this way again. And because at the end of the day, I want to truly be authentic to myself, to others, and to love them as Jesus loved me.
Right. Exactly.
Just my Jesus thing for the day. Any lasting thoughts?
Gosh, I think that
we talked a lot.
We did. Yeah. The time always goes so fast.
I know, right? It does. Well, it's always just so awesome to have you here, and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll talk. I feel like we've been down a little bit of a rabbit hole. And but I mean, that's it, right? We've got it's that, when we say it's the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right. We can't be Pollyannas. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can be, but we have to.
No, but we should be.
Right? Because it's that joy, right? We don't want to be blissfully unaware,
No.
right? But we want to have that. It's that balance. It's striking that balance and taking care of ourselves. I think that's a big takeaway. When we take care of ourselves and we have that clarity, then we can, and that peace in our hearts,
Mm-hmm.
and the bum bang 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 is, that buzz. What's, I always go the Jesus Christ Superstar, the scene where what's that buzz? Tell me what's that. But when that buzz is gone, and it's just the peace as I look at the how beautiful ridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the peace in our hearts, right? Then we can be the best for others. And
right.
Isn't it? At the end of the day?
At the end of the day, that's it. When we look in that mirror, we can say, I led to the best of my ability today. And Jesus, help me be even better tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Alrighty, my darling. So good to talk to you. We'll be best.
Okay.
Wow, reflecting on that episode, it's so true when you're in leadership positions and you're given responsibility and authority. How do you build true, authentic trust and relationship? And that question, is anything ever good enough, right? It's holding ourselves accountable. And I loved when Nancy said, living a regular habit of observable behavior, right? It's so true. And holding on to who we are as humans. We're humans. It's about people. It's about people are human and they have souls, blood pumping through their bodies. And the one thing that I think we all can really hold on to is hope, right? Hope that, when things go awry, they're going to be better. And love. And we're going to talk all about hope and love in our next episode. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to chatting with you. Or are you listening to us chat? Then have a good week.